The CPI report, Child Protection in Iowa, brought to you by Vocal, Victims of Child Abuse Laws. You can watch our program on Mediacom Channel 15 here in the greater Des Moines area, Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock. It's repeated again on Wednesday evening at 9:30. You can also watch this program on Cox Channel 23 in Council Bluffs. It comes on in Council Bluffs every other Thursday at 4:30 p.m. You can email us at vocaliowa@mchsi.com. My telephone number here in Des Moines is 515-276-3956. John's number is 515-282-2672. My name is Don Burgmaier, and with me at the controls is my co-host,
John Harvey, and welcome to the CPI report. CPI, that stands for Child Protection in Iowa, and we look at some of the issues that concern child abuse, and with the idea that we would like to have some influence over what happens in this child protection area. We do that in two ways. We work with families directly who have difficulties with the Department of Human Services. We don't hold ourselves out to be attorneys, but we think that with a few hints, parents are better equipped to handle their cases in court with or without an attorney. We simply try to give you enough heads up so that you can protect yourself and your children from inappropriate infringement along governmental lines. And then our second one, as we said, is to attempt to influence public policy, whether it's in the General Assembly or perhaps even over a television program, because we think that we can, letting people know how they can handle things appropriately. We believe that has some influence with the degree with which parents feel comfortable and children can at the same time be protected from those who would like to destroy their lives. And the biggest problem that I find in working with the Department of Human Services is their agenda. Their agenda is one which appears from their funding streams and so forth to be one which is directed solely at protection of children. However, if you were to discover what their real agenda is, it has to do with expansion of their staff, expansion of their influence, an expansion of their budget. And this comes first. Any hint that has anything to do with child protection would be secondary to that particular agenda. Well, we mentioned last week, and the bill still is up for a vote. Coming out of the House, originally House Study Bill 144 has turned into House File 2590, and House File 2590 would like to close down access to records. We've been pleased to have in Iowa something called the Sunshine Law. The Sunshine Law is a very good way to equip citizens to know what is going on in government and to blow the whistle when whistles are needed to keep public servants on the straight and narrow. And you certainly don't want to see public servants with their hands in the till. Well, 2590 says we need another exception to the Sunshine Law. They only have 51 exceptions, as I understand now. They just needed to add a few more exceptions. And the Sunshine Law, which was crafted to have everything open, now has come full circle to the point where it appears now that everything will be closed. The subject of 2590, House File 2590, which was passed overwhelmingly in the House of Representatives in the Iowa General Assembly, is now up for Senate vote. I'm glad they haven't seized upon that to vote for that bill yet, because I think they should take great caution before jumping on a bill that will shut down the sunshine that could peek in here into public affairs. Well, this one has the subject of emergency preparedness and security of any procedure operated by any governmental agency. And of course, that could be contractors and everyone else. So anything that the government does that could be roughly considered to be emergency preparedness or security, if they decide to change the locks on the equipment shed, you don't have to tell anybody about it. Just go ahead and change them. Don't bother to make that a part of an agenda. Don't bother even if it has wide implications upon the citizens that government is supposed to serve. Simply do it in secret. And if you have to pay the fellow that does the job, $1 million, don't bother to tell anybody that you're doing that, because now 2590 will permit you to keep that secret. Well, I'm opposed to House File 2590. You may have guessed that from my comments. What might happen if we keep this business going of keeping everything under wraps, keeping everything secret that we're doing? Well, do you suppose that keeping things secret would make it easier to do a land grab like the Knaps and others did up in Ankeny, where the chief of the Department of Transportation could go out and buy land as though he were a part of government himself and was authorized to go out and buy land, and then buy and sell land and make a profit on it while dealing as a public agent? Well, if we could only shelter those people from secrecy plans, then we could have a lot more of that kind of action. How about if we have a contractor come in and help us with our employment problems, like Central Iowa Training Authority, and decide that it's really okay to pay their top people $350,000. Well, if you had secret government, you could do that and not have to worry. It seems as though, to me, secrecy invites the kind of behavior that we have seen all over the place. The greater the secrecy, the more likely is the behavior to be abhorrent. And when people have access to the public till and their behavior is not in keeping with honesty and integrity, then we as taxpayers are truly the losers. Well, that's what's happening in the General Assembly. They're making taxpayers losers, because now, if it is a security measure, no matter how simple the measure is, it can be done in secret. To me, I don't know of anything about the security issue that would be so abhorrent that you couldn't talk about it in public. What is it that would be so vicious, um, a plan that you can't let the people know who are paying for the repairs or the equipment or whatever? If there was something of great, overwhelming significance, they could always go to a local judge and say, look, we need you to cover us on this. If this information ever got out, it could do grave damage to the public, and ask that that judge to order that to be kept under lock and key for 2 years, 3 years, whatever would be appropriate. But to say that everything, no matter how insignificant it is going to be held under lock and key, and only the insiders will know what the equipment's going to be, what the plans are going to be, how they will impact the citizenry, none of that is going to be disclosed. So secret government, if you want it, support House File 2590. If you don't support secret government, it would probably be a good idea to call this your senator and say, look, I don't believe in secret government. Do not vote for House File 2590. It is a subversive act of, and it invites the kinds of evil that we do not need in our current society. What do you think, Don?
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Okay. Okay, we're going to. Here's something that this is not secret. This says that we have a few judges who may want to keep their jobs. It's called job retention. We can't vote them in, but we have the privilege of voting them out. Judges peculiarly have kind of a function that is done in secret for the most part. Not because they plan it to be secret, but it isn't something that is really notable when a judge handles 50 or 60 cases. But the people who are involved certainly know, and if you're one of those people who are adversely involved in these affairs that the judges come up with, you probably should give us a jingle, because we'll let them know what your thinking is about a given judge. You must, if you want to throw the judge out, vote Iowa judges out, you need to know a little bit about the record. If you do not know enough about the judge to have him on the payroll, your best bet is to say, I don't know enough about this judge to rehire him. Why should I rehire a judge about whom I know nothing? Well, there's 3 sections to District 5. District 5A is Polk County and the surrounding counties. District Court Judge Darrell Goodhue would like to have his job back. Peter Keller would like to keep his job. Virginia Cobb, Richard Clogg, Thomas Mott, and Kevin Parker would all like to keep their jobs. Let's see if we can find what happens in District C. Looks like B is going to hang around for another retention later on. But here is some kind of an idea about the District 5 or 5C judges: Judge Eliza Overham, Donna Paulson, Artis Reese, Carol Egley, Carol Coppola, William Price, and Louise Jacobs. Have you noticed how many of those judges are female judges? I often thought that it would be great to have female judges because they have a heart for families and so forth. But I have found as I look over some of these judges that I see and hear in courtrooms that those who aspire to be judges are not the ones that I was thinking about when I thought it would be good to have women judges. So let us know what you think about these particular judges. And in November, let them know what you think about their behavior in court. One of these days, we're going to ask our guest our long-term guest, to let you know what kinds of things to look for in a judge. What kinds of things should a judge be eager that you know about his or her behavior? And what kinds of things does that judge do to earn your respect and your vote in November? One thing that a lot of patriots that I've talked to do with respect to judges is just to say no to all of them, because sooner or later we're likely to find a judge who gets thrown out by the retention vote. Right now, retention votes can range up to as high as like 92%, 94%. Don't take the opinion of the lawyers. They come through with 98%, 99%, and even 100% favorable rate for judges. Why do you suppose an attorney would be favoring the judges? Well, the judges basically are the attorney's boss. And if they knew that attorneys were voting against him, they could take reprisals against those attorneys. And if that is his stock in trade, if that's how he makes his money, he's going to be a little more careful about speaking against judges. So we have quite a number of judges here in districts 5A and 5B. Don't hesitate to let us know if you know about judges in other districts. One of the districts that I've heard all too much about is District 2. District 2 is Ames and surrounding territory. I think Mason City is even in District 2. And some of the horror stories from the judiciary seem to be found in District 2. Well, that's a note or two. We wanted to get to a point where we could give you a little bit more information. It doesn't look like we're going to be able to do it all in one program here, but we want you to know that if you have a false child abuse report written up against you, that is something that you do not want to have around. It can literally destroy your reputation and your ability to properly raise your children. And these stories do not enhance your ability to shape your family life the way that you would like to do. Accusatory false accusations can be extremely damaging to your family. I thought I had some information here regarding a school that Kim Hart is planning. In fact, every year she assembles a very fine faculty, and this schooling is done this year in Las Vegas. One year is as close as Kansas City, so a lot of Des Moines people or a lot of people from Iowa were able to attend that school. And the school is set up for pediatricians. It's set up for teachers, for particularly for attorneys who want to become very effective in this business of helping families in the child abuse area. Since we're not attorneys, sometimes we have to look to other sources for assistance. Kim Hart is from Ohio, and she works a little differently than we do. We work directly with parents. Kim Hart will work at the request of parents. Will work with the parent's attorney. So she's a consultant to the attorney, and this schooling that she has is fairly expensive by the time you fly to Las Vegas and pay for the tuition of the school for 3 or 4 days. It can become fairly expensive. But when you look at the faculty that she has, it is amazing some of the people that she has been able to gather together for this Las Vegas schooling. We'll try to make sure that you get from time to time, since the schooling doesn't come off until September, we may have a little bit of time to give you alerts from that.
What is the cost out there?
I think it's like $595 if you register before the 1st of August, and then it goes up a little bit, and your ability to
yeah, but that's a
withdraw.
tax write-off for attorneys.
Well,
so therefore, it don't cost anything.
Well, tax write-offs doesn't mean it's free, so they do have to. And for individuals like myself that where we charge nothing, it would be it certainly wouldn't be much of a tax write-off. At least we wouldn't consider it on that basis. Well, we're going to turn the program over here to Terrance Walker, and the reason why we do this is because we know that unless there is reform in the juvenile court system and in family court and even in criminal court, the things that we are attempting to do with respect to child protection issues are really difficult uphill battles. If a judge can wipe out a family, can tear a family apart, along with the help of the DHS, that calls for reform, and the reform goes far beyond the meager efforts that we can provide in helping the family. We can put you in a better position than if you had no information, but certainly until the reform movement comes through with flying colors, we're not going to be able to do too much. Isn't that right, Terrance Walker?
You bet. And I appreciate you bringing that list up for the listeners there. And I am the judge of the judges. There's only one that can do it better, and he's above all of us. But I just wanted to say that's a good topic that you were talking about, putting the sunshine in. It's like you got a house full of cockroaches and the lights are off. You put the lights on, you flip that switch, the cockroaches go scattering. I guess a lot of these politicians and judges, in a sense, are like cockroaches, because if you put the light on them, they're going to scatter. And a lot of them are scattering even before you put on the lights, because they can see it coming. But one thing I thought was very interesting here in the national news, this is out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, from the McCall.com website, April 4th, 2006. There's an article, interesting article, talking about how pay raises were done in Pennsylvania in secret, are basically in private proceedings. Not only the judiciary, but some of the legislatures basically upped their pay raise. And according to this article on McCall.com, they took the action to enact the pay raise at 2 a.m. on July 7th of last year without public notice or debate. And in a case which was filed in the court, in the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Pennsylvania, is getting ready to be heard. And then there's also an opposing case filed by some judges who lost their pay raises after the legislators, when questioned upon it, basically repealed the pay raise. And meanwhile, in federal court, a Common Cause of Pennsylvania has a petition asking that the Supreme Court be prevented from taking any action. Common Cause has some good arguments, mainly that Supreme Court Chief Justice Ralph Cappy played a key role in the pay raise negotiations, and that the justices had a financial stake in the pay grab. The Citizens Lobby argues that the justices' actual pecuniary interest in deciding these cases violates Pennsylvania citizens' due process rights under the 5th and 14th Amendments. Did you have a comment, Don?
No.
Okay. Several months ago, Chief Justice Cappy recused himself from participating in any of the cases. He admitted to being part of the secret negotiations and called criticism of it knee-jerk, but significant political ramifications still linger on from the pay grab. The justices, who must be retained every 10 years, saw one of their colleagues, Russell Negro, I don't think he's a black guy, by the way, kicked off the bench in November's election. The pay raise and the court's previous decisions to let lawmakers take more immediately as unvouchered expenses are issues that could haunt all of them. And this is the only way to dispel the cloud over the suspicion over the pay grab is not for the Supreme Court Act. The citizens' best chance lies in the federal court intervening, according to this article. So there you have one instance where the officials are basically upping their pay and doing it in secret. I think this is very scary times here. You know, we have a lot of things going on in the judiciary. One of many of them is the constant upgrading of pay raises. We had last year the Supreme Court justices and Court of Appeals justices. I think all the judges in the state got pay raises, huge pay raises. They upped their budget, what was it, some 12 or 14 million or something like that last year. I think they're trying to up it again this year.
Above the request.
Yeah, up above the request. So it was like about 20-something million for the budget. And then in the meanwhile, we've got a judge who's had 2 OWIs who got kicked off the bench, yet he's entitled to 65% of his initial pay, according to what I've been told by some officials down at the State House. Hit 65% of over $100-something thousand. That's significant for the rest of his life. You know, is that what is that justice? I don't know. I don't think anybody else who had done 2 drunk driving instances and lived to tell about it, luckily, would have gotten off with $65,000 a year for the rest of their life. But this is what happens here in Iowa with the judiciary. But we've got another interesting article, I think, from the Connecticut Law Tribune, dated Monday, April 3rd, 2006. And this article is very critical of a judicial review council. Now, we have these things, similar things in organizations like these all over the nation in different states. And even a part of the federal judicial branch, there's a federal judicial commission which hears complaints against judges. We have here in Iowa the Judicial Qualifications Commissions. Well, this article by Norm Pattis is very critical of their policies concerning the Connecticut Judicial Review Council, and he goes on to state, according to a recent report by this newspaper, 2 judges have received private admonishments in Connecticut in the past 6 years. Who are they? What did they do to deserve the private cluck, cluck, cluck of the council? We don't know. Indeed, given the secrecy surrounding the process, we can't know. Why? Public confidence in the bench is important. Judges are to avoid not simply impropriety, but even the appearance of impropriety. Every 8 years, jurists must appear before the General Assembly for reappointment hearings. Wouldn't information about those whose knuckles were rapped help the public and not merely the General Assembly decide whether to sign off on another term? We don't play hardball politics in Connecticut. We don't elect Superior Court judges. That is a good thing. I don't want to counter shop. I don't want to shop for justice at the shop and stop and shop counter checkout. And then he goes on to state that when he read that in the past 6 years, a grand total of $2,900 was spent investigating the 500 or so complaints filed against judges, he winced. I appear almost daily before the judges of the state, and although I believe that we have some very good and dedicated bench, I have yet to see halos atop the heads of the men and women in robes. From time to time, what I've seen scared me, and I second that emotion. There was a very, it's very telling that we have a lot of lawyers now coming out who were in the past afraid to do so and speak upon what's going on the bench and their abhorrence of it. Never in Connecticut history has a judge been removed from office by the General Assembly. We came close with Hartford probate judge James Kinsella, who resigned after a House committee voted in favor of impeachment, and this is what they say is an alternative for removal through the judicial commissions is impeachment. Elsewhere in the nation, judges are disciplined and publicly. In the past 6 years, 74 judges have been removed from office. 563 have been publicly sanctioned elsewhere in the nation, according to the American Judicature Society, I should say. Are we seriously maintaining that we have a monopoly on virtue here in the land of steady habits? The current Judicial Review Council is little more of a joke. Why aren't more people laughing? Well, probably because a lot of people are crying, and they're crying silently because they don't know what's going on and they don't know who to tell. I would say that, if you have an issue against a judge, let us know. Give us a call. We got the numbers flashed at the end of the show, beginning of the show, and you can actually give us your 2 cents on the judge, and we will try our best to vote them out, because a part of this, I'm a part of the organization, founded the organization called VJO, Vote Iowa Judges Out. That's what we're going to do. We're going to put a website together so you can put your comments right online at www.vjo.org, V-I-G-O, or VIJO.org, and we're going to be voting them out. Now, there's 2 other interesting topics I wanted to talk about just briefly. Here's the numbers there for Don and John. My number personally is 288-3702.
You want to repeat that again?
288-3702 for those that aren't too fast to hear that quickly. Doubles as a business line, so if you hear a business voice, just ask for Terrance. Ask for the judge of the judges, and we'll know who you're talking about. But we've got 2 other interesting cases here I'd like to talk about here. Usually I don't talk about stuff that's in the national limelight, because I feel that there's a lot of that already covered on the national news. Now, one interesting story here this past week, matter of fact, it was April 3rd or 4th, I believe. This gentleman here, Jose Padilla, who was alleged to have built or planned to build a dirty bomb, which is something that basically wipes out all communication devices within a several mile radius, and electronics as well. He'd been held for 3 years as an enemy combatant, although he was a United States citizen. And it's been said, and it's been set forth in this nation, that we are entitled to certain unalienable rights. Well, for 3 years, this gentleman here, who I can't judge here without the facts before me, whether or not he's guilty or not, or whether or not what he's done or is alleged to have done is wrong. He's been held in abeyance. His constitutional rights have basically been suspended. And we're not supposed to suspend constitutional rights of United States citizens. But this guy was done so on the basis that he was an enemy combatant. Well, luck has it, he filed a case for the United States Supreme Court, and right before the case was due to set to be heard or decided whether or not the Supreme Court would grant the hearing of the writ of certiorari, which is the way you bring a case before the United States Supreme Court. Right before he'd done that, all of a sudden they put him in civilian custody, and I guess they're supposedly starting his ordinary trial right process, which is, the right to a speedy trial, jury trial, whatever, all that stuff.
Constitutional rights.
Constitutional rights. So how timely. But these are the kind of shenanigans that go on here.
We've seen that happen before.
Oh, we see that happen all the time, but I think it's a very good that this is happening right now in the nation's eyesight. And I don't think that they overemphasize, or they emphasize enough what is transpiring here. These officials basically, in order to prevent the Supreme Court from hearing the case, they go ahead and give him his trial rights, or they start the process to give him his trial rights. Well, on the flip side of this whole enemy combatant issue, we have another gentleman here who has just, as of yesterday, been found guilty of, lying in order to prevent the unveiling of a plot to hatch to stop in the 9/11 attacks. He basically lied to investigators to prevent them from learning of the plot to fly those two jetliners into the World Trade Center towers. And he was convicted of that, I believe, yesterday as well.
Is he a scapegoat? Is that a possibility?
Well, no, I don't think I think that he's the fall guy. They can't convict any of the people that committed suicide, obviously, so they got to blame somebody. But I'll talk to the criminal case as to what that goes. I wanted to discuss the hypocrisy that's going on here in the judiciary. Well, this guy is not from here. He's not a United States citizen, and his name is Zacharias Moussaoui. And do you think that the officials that brought him into custody, do you think they consider him an enemy combatant? No, they considered him, for all purposes, they considered him entitled to all his criminal trial rights, and they convicted him in a regular civilian court here in the United States. So here you have it. Two weird, divergent cases. One where a guy is a United States citizen and he's deemed an enemy combatant and his rights basically suspended for 3 years. Then we've got a guy that is basically a foreigner and, allegedly involved in all this terrorist stuff. Well, he's actually been convicted of that. But he's entitled to the constitutional trial rights, which we all are supposed to enjoy without impedance. So this is the state of things here. And then we wonder why we've got a lady like last year, Terry Schiavo, whom the court just basically had the feeding tube removed from and allowed to die. Well, we're all dying here because of the courts, because what they're doing is they're strangling us, and they're strangling all of our rights as citizens here in the United States. One other interesting tidbit here, I just wanted to share this last picture. I thought this was interesting. This is on bsn.net. There's some sort of resemblance there, I guess, between Zacharias Moussaoui and this actor, this famous actor that's on these cop shows. They asked the interesting question. Separated at birth? Very, very interesting. But that's all I had to say. Did you have any other comments, John or John?
No, I think that was a good presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate you
Oh.
having me on the show once again, buddy.
Okay. We certainly appreciate you giving that side of the insight in our society. Things are not going all that well as far as the judiciary is concerned. And that is one of the things that we're going to find out sooner or later is a part of the responsibility of the judges, and that is to engender the kind of respect that should be a part of the system. In other words, the judges should not be engaging in things in which they should not be engaging in practices which cause the citizenry to be upset or disturbed or unfamiliar with the court action. And I don't think you engender that respect simply by taking them through the marble halls of the $30 million Hall of Justice over there on East Court Avenue. I think you do that through very knowledgeable, kindly judges who are respectful to the people who appear before them. And I've seen judges here in Polk County Courthouse who do not fit that pattern. Saw one judge who appeared inebriated most of the time. He had a red nose. He leaned back in his judicial chair during a jury trial. He leaned back so far in his chair, and he was looking up at the ceiling, leaning back so far that you could see his knees above the judicial bench. Now, that is not the kind of judge that we should be paying homage and respect to. That is not the kind of judge that should be on the bench or under the bench or lying on the bench or whatever it was he was doing. We have seen another judge that I call Captain Kangaroo. He's built like Captain Kangaroo. He barks out orders, not as kindly as Captain Kangaroo did, but there are a number of characters whose their very pose in court is obnoxious, absolutely obnoxious. Now, it doesn't hurt for a judge to show anger. It doesn't hurt for a judge to show that he's upset. It doesn't hurt for a judge to show that sometimes he may actually be human. But I think there is something to be said about judges who will misbehave in court simply because they're wearing the black dress. I think that, and we'll look into the canons of ethics. By the way, the canons of ethics are written so broadly that it would be difficult to nail a judge appropriately against any kind of a false or a bad behavior in court. But you know where when you step into court whether a judge is respectful of the people that stand before him. One thing that I really like is a judge that gives you the feeling that he knows what he's talking about. And he explains precisely why he is ruling on a particular subject. And he might even say, I don't agree with mandatory minimum sentencing, for an example. But he says, I have a respect for the law, and that's what the law says I must do, is to impose a mandatory minimum sentence in this case. You see, if they come right out and honestly tell you that their hands are tied to do what they themselves would like to do, but the law directs them. You see, the attorney, the judge is not supposed to be a freewheeling character that dreams up these sentences. He has to follow the law. And sometimes you may find a judge that does. And I think those kinds of judges should be honored and revered, and a word or two from time to time to a judge like that. There are not very many of them that you'd have to speak to as being honorable, would you, Terrance?
Well, I think they're far few between, I tell you.
You bet. Well,
I thought it would be interesting if you would touch on the whole incident down at the courthouse today, which is April 5th.
Let's see.
Did you hear about that?
I didn't hear enough about. Can you give us just
Well, I guess apparently they found some powder, and they were trying to cleanse it, so they removed everybody from the building. Lo and behold, since the judges are leaving out, I believe that the courthouse has been cleansed. So I think that was one interesting note to make for the record.
That was Polk County Courthouse?
Yeah, the Polk County Courthouse.
I think that powder
has been cleansed today, for once.
Right. I think that powder was donated by the golf courses, because when they released the judges, that's where they could go, is directly to the golf course.
Oh, is that where they went to?
Yeah, nice day.
Yeah, yeah.
So
might have even been pre-planned. You never know.
I didn't hear the end of that, but it also marks underscores this business of security, that we have to be so extra cautious about who gets into the people's courthouse, and who can go to a courtroom, and what that person can do. And I think eventually, even if there are some cases where people can handle their own cases, they're going to be deluged with forms. And the forms are going to tell you recipe by recipe precisely how you will present your case, so that the judge can understand it, and so that you can go for justice the way they want you to go for justice. Has nothing to do with your creative way of pointing out we do have a Constitution, Your Honor. I abide by the law, and I think that you should stay within your constitutional boundaries. You did take an oath, did you not, sir or ma'am? This courthouse is being filled with women, I think, but you did take an oath, did you not, to uphold the Iowa Constitution and the U.S. Constitution? And you do have some book learning, don't you, with respect to the cases, the case law? And you do have some book learning, don't you, regarding the Iowa Rules of Civil Procedure and the Iowa Rules of Criminal Procedure? Perhaps you should tend to your learning. Okay. I hope someday to find a set of judges that would not have to be admonished thusly. Well, let's take a look at a website that could be of help to people who are struggling with the Department of Human Services. Dial into www.dhs.state.ia.us. That last part, state.ia.us, is a feature that you'll see on all state agency, or most state agency websites. It says simply a convention. And let's go to the next page, Don. In addition to that one, and I noticed this one has www.dhs again, but somebody walloped the W. But it's still www.dhs.state.ia.us.
You're referring to the down at the bottom.
Down at the bottom, right. Now, at the top of this page, of this display, are a couple of ways in which you can make a request for an examination of a child abuse report that has been written up against you. That lower one is kind of a shortcut one. We'll leave it on the screen here for just a little bit because we think you should write this one down in case you or relatives or friends or neighbors that you know are involved with the Department of Human Services. And we'll show you in just a moment what will come up on the screen so that you can get on your computer and make an immediate request to have your case heard by someone else other than the DHS. DHS are pretty opinionated individuals. When they make a decision, they don't like to have it undermined. The first place you'll go is to the Department of Inspections and Appeals, and that case will then be set up. They can take their time. Time is on their side, so they can certainly spend as much time as they wish on setting up a hearing. The hearing is very important, extremely important, that you get to that appeals hearing. It may not be a lot of wise people. It may not be a friendly situation for you, but it's your only situation in which you have your day in court. Everything else is at the appeal level, and appeals mean we don't take any more evidence. So this is the first time and the last time that you get to deliver evidence at an evidentiary hearing. You can behave like your own Perry Mason. You can be your own attorney in this case. You can actually subpoena witnesses. You can subpoena information. The DHS doesn't usually obey on subpoenas and so forth, but you can put that information that you made the request, that you did serve a subpoena properly, and that you were turned down. Get that into the record so that when it comes time for you to go on what is it's called a judicial review, then those errors made by the Department of Human Services in blocking your appeal can be displayed before the Iowa District Court. The cost of the appeal up to that point are zero. In other words, it's minimal. It doesn't cost you a filing fee or anything in order to go this far. This one tells you to let them know what your name is, what your mailing address is, zip code, your phone number, the county in which you reside. There's some questions down here that you can answer. Will my benefits continue? Well, you don't have benefits.
That has to do with food stamps.
Yeah. This is a generalized form, so it has all kinds of questions that don't relate. I want a pre-hearing conference, and the answer is yes. Tell us why you are appealing. Please be brief. No, you don't have to be brief, but give them a good statement here as to this appeal process. Don, you had a comment.
There may be people that watch this program that need that interpreter.
Yes. For a language interpreter, or you may need some assistance because you're hard of hearing or something of that sort. So you can ask for it. And they said we'll provide the interpreter for you. You sign that. I don't know how you sign it on the internet, but because once you put this into your computer, then at the bottom of the second page it says submit, and so you can send this whole thing immediately, and they will have it electronically received within seconds at the Department of Human Services. Getting it over there is pretty fast. Getting the hearing could take months and months and months. But don't let their inability to operate on a timely basis fool you here. Stick with it. Roll up your sleeves and don't let these things go. Some people will, get very, very angry about being falsely accused, and anger may last 2 or 3 days. And then once the anger goes away, then any reason about any desire or drive or push to fight it is somewhat diminished. Don't let that happen in your case. Move with it consistently to do everything you can to beat this thing. When you dial into that DHS.state, IA. And so forth, you'll come across a home page that looks like this one. You get a smiley face over there, Kevin Concanon, and it lists some of the areas in which you may have some interest. Your interest in this particular case is where it says appeals. And once you get to appeals, tap on the button for that, and it'll bring up something called appeals, where it gives you some idea about how to approach these appeals. Most of these are fairly good, straightforward ideas about the appeals. They say contact your social worker. I think that's the last person I would want to contact in appeal process, unless you want to force them to discuss it with the social worker's supervisor or the system's individual. But they're usually they've usually got their minds pretty well made up in these cases. When you do go for the evidentiary hearing, this is your first time and last time to gather evidence. And we'll be talking to you from time to time about how to put together your case. Your case has to be very impressive. You have to prove yourself to be innocent. They don't have to prove you to be guilty, because they can stick out their bony finger and say you are the perpetrator of abuse upon a child. While this is not a criminal offense as such, it certainly is not a pleasant thing to follow. Why don't you put up some phone numbers there, Don? And because we're just about at the end of our program for today. We certainly appreciate your coming by and taking a listen to Don and John and Terrance with respect to the conduct of your family. Here's some telephone numbers that may be of assistance to you. And be sure to let us know if you've had some of those marvelous interactions with judges, because we think some of those judges need to be thrown out. We need your word on that. Okay? We'll see you next